It's Matt Green here. We are just going live with our broadcast today of Real Insights Live. Super excited about today's show with Ben Kjar. We've actually got a number of really good shows coming up here in the next few weeks. So on the 6th, I want to make everyone aware of a great show that we've got coming up with two gentlemen that have a very popular podcast right now already on YouTube and Facebook. Greg McDaniel and Matt Johnson, social media experts with Real Estate Uncensored. So that should be very good. Also, just wanted to give a quick plug. We've got a really cool leadership opportunity within our company right now that we're looking for the right person, someone super motivated, excited about business and growth, leadership development. Our training for this position is unreal. This is a great six-figure opportunity. And if you're interested in getting involved with one of our offices up in the Davis County area, please send me a message. Just a super, super cool opportunity. And I'd love to get connected with super talented people. So for all of our people listening out there, if you're aware of anyone that I should be in contact with, please let me know. Today's show is super special to me because we've got one of my childhood heroes, Ben Kjar. I'm going to let Ben tell much of his story. It's because it's something that I experienced watching him grow up. Our families were dear friends. His parents and my parents were great friends. So on occasion, I got the opportunity to go over and hang out and remember very vividly when Ben was born and part of their family. And he's just got this really great, inspiring story. And to top it all off, he's just absolutely crushing it as a home flipper. So I'm going to let Ben tell his story. Ben, thanks for being on the call today, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I'm super grateful to be here. Thanks for having me on the call.
Yeah, awesome. So if you don't mind, I mean, if we could start, generally when I do the calls, I have a lot of people tell me a little bit about their story. And how they went from their professional, wherever they started, to real estate. But for you, I'd like, if you wouldn't mind starting a little bit earlier. I know you were born with Crouzon Syndrome, and that presented some challenges for you early in life. And if you don't mind, maybe just starting from that point and tell us a little bit about what that is and your experience. And we'll start a little bit earlier than normal.
Yeah, and I don't mind chatting about it. It was wasn't too long ago that I was very uncomfortable with it, and as I've been more open about what I've been through, it's been a great impact for a lot of individuals as I've been able to share what I've been able to overcome. But Crouzon syndrome is something that is a craniofacial anomaly, meaning it's not very usual, it's rare, and the mid face grows at a different pace than the rest of the face. So at a young age, the doctors were telling my parents, hey, listen, your child is going to be, he's going to have to undergo a lot of surgeries, right? He's going to have to undergo, he's going to have to get cut on quite a bit. Now, as that happens, he's going to have some facial changes. And so my first surgery was when I was 1. They cut me open from ear to ear, and it was quite the surgery. It was underwent hours and hours of surgery. And later on, when I was 5, as you can imagine, during those growth stages, you change. And so there's a need for an update or an advancement in the mid-face, and it happened again. And I mean, you go through tough times. I mean, kids see what they see and they say what they see, and they're very honest and they're very bold and they're very open. And it was a little tough, to say the least. And but through gaining the right relationships and creating friendships, I wasn't bullied immensely, but it was a struggle here sometimes, understanding who I was, what I was worth, and that I was enough, right? And my parents did a fantastic job allowing me to know that again and again.
Yeah, I could see that about your parents. They're pretty special people. It's interesting that you and I have known each other basically your whole life. I'm a little bit older than you, so I've known you your whole life, and it wasn't until just a week ago that we even talked about this, because for all intents and purposes, from my experience with you, it never, it's good to hear that you say and kind of like acknowledge that there was some challenges, because from outside looking in, you were so tough and confident and
Mhm.
self-assured that no one would ever guess that it was any kind of a challenge for you ever. And all this time you and I never even spoke about it, because like everyone saw past it because of you grinning, ear to ear, and your strength and your personality, and just like your confidence just was always so contagious. It's pretty amazing. I know that wrestling was a big part of your life, and I love that you honor your parents and showing that they helped you develop that confidence despite the stuff that was maybe going on in between your ears at times. What role did wrestling play in helping you build that self-confidence? And tell us a little bit about your wrestling career, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all you parents out there that are going to be able to see this, right? All you guys on Facebook, that's what I love about Facebook. You can be in front of somebody and you can be in front of everybody, right? So all you parents out there that are wanting to create confidence in a child, do this, because this worked for me. My parents were absolutely fantastic at allowing me to find a method of confidence, right? So whatever sport there was, I was part of it. Soccer, basketball, football, baseball, wrestling being one of them. I was a part of that. The only thing I wasn't a part of was hockey, because I just watched you, Matt. That's why. I just watched you, and that, if you guys haven't seen Matt compete on the ice, you haven't lived. So just wait till that moment. But you know what? I did all those things, and my parents said, you know what? This child deserves to have confidence. He deserves to live and be okay with whatever is going to be given to him in his life. And so they allowed me opportunity. Find a child that needs confidence and give them opportunity to find that success through confidence. I was able to do that through the sport of wrestling. I was built for it. And my dad, played, football and wrestled at BYU. One of my childhood heroes is my uncle Shandell Smoot. He was able to be a coach to me, a huge mentor. I remember him coming to the hospital and him walking me down the halls and us talking. And I'll never forget those moments. And we'd go play video games or whatever. But I was able to find something and find success in it. And that changed literally who I became. I jumped into wrestling at a young age. It became something that I just got really addicted to, because it's something that when you're out there, there's nobody else there. You can't blame anybody. There's no entitlement, right? You can't walk to the top of the podium and get the gold medal for doing nothing. You get to compete. You get to work. You get to do the extra. There's only room on the podium at the top for one individual. And so if your coach tells you to do 20 push-ups, you better freaking believe that you're not doing 20 push-ups. You're doing more than that, right? And in life, that's what it's about. Once you can start gaining that type of confidence in who you are and what you can become and who you can impact, life becomes a little bit more abundant. And wrestling became that thing for me where I was able to find that confidence and jump to a new level.
That's awesome. I think as a parent, that's like one of my greatest hopes for my kids, is that they'll find something they're that passionate about, and that can create that level of confidence in them as they develop those skills and get better at it. Because that's the role hockey played for me in my life, right? That something that just I got so excited and passionate about, and it allowed me to build confidence. It's funny, I look back at pictures of me at 12 or 13 years old. I was not an attractive early teenage kid, but I walked around like every girl in school should be like lusting after me, because that's what I saw in my head, right? So, sports allowed me to accomplish that personal belief in myself, and that's my greatest hope for my kids. And certainly I can see that in you too. And man, what a great story about what we tell ourselves, the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that our parents tell us, just so impactful. So tell us a little bit about how you're, because you kind of really exceeded at the highest level in the wrestling world. And so, what drove you to that? Like, what was the thing that pushed and allowed you to spend those extra hours and nights and days in the gym working? And tell us a little bit about your successes in the wrestling field.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't go to that next point until I tell you about my parents and what they did for me. My parents were sitting there when I was broken, when I had tough times, and they told me, Ben, there's going to be stuff like this, but are you going to live like a victim, or are you going to live like a victor? Are you going to live a life of just hiding and suffocation? Are you going to live a life of playing small? Or are you going to actually step up and do something about it and live outside the box? Those were the differences, because there were times when there were adults looking at me, pointing me out, and I've been able to share it in front of a lot of, thousands of people and tell those type of specific stories about what those times did for me, right? But my parents, I remember, came up to me and said, are you going to take it to the next level and live abundant, or are you going to live like a little, you're going to run every time? Are you going to run every time someone comes after you and says something? And so at a young age, I was back against the wall, back against the wall. What was I going to do? Fight or flight? And was I going to fight? Was I going to have to fight a battle all the time, or was I going to build the right relationships and live like a champion? Well, I jumped into wrestling in junior high. I was junior varsity and started building my way up, and never lost in junior high, and jumped to high school and went to Viewmont High School and was undefeated my sophomore year. Went to my junior year, only lost a couple of matches, and went to my senior year, and we'd never won a state title. We'd never won a state title before, and it was a 3-day state tournament. And when we get to the state tournament after the first day, we lived at such a level of intensity, such a level of tenacity, such a level of telling ourselves that we were worth it. You were talking about in between your head, right? Or in between your ears, that piece, that mind. We talk about real estate. And I believe that piece of real estate, they 6 to 8 inches in between your ears, right? 6 to 8 inches, whether you have a big head or not. Maybe 10 inches. I don't know. But, right? So imagine that the real estate between your ears is the most important real estate, right? So if I get into high school and I want to go win a state title, and I'm like telling myself that I can do it, how Conor McGregor says it best. If you're in the UFC, he says it best. You UFC fans out there, before he held on the both belts around his shoulders, he had dreamt it. So get this. This is a fun story. You'll love this, man, because you probably dreamed about this type of stuff. My junior year, right, there's never a 3-time state champion in Viewmont history. My uncle Shandell, I was lucky he wasn't there his sophomore year. He was in Hawaii, not Hawaii. That would be nice if he was in Hawaii. He was in Ohio, and if he wasn't in Ohio, he probably would have taken the first triple state title. But I had a jacket, right? For all you guys out there who want to set goals, you got to be gutsy, and you got to be willing to tell yourself that you can achieve it, kind of like Conor McGregor does, and tell other people, not in a cocky way, because there's a fine line, right? But in a very confident way that you can achieve it. Because I really feel that we attract what we believe we can attract, right? So I had this Letterman's jacket. I don't know if they do that stuff anymore, but we had this Letterman's jacket. And my junior year, before we even went to state, I put 3X on the shoulder for 3-time state champion. Woo! Boy, was I gutsy. Holy cow. I was like 5 foot nothing. And I felt like I was a 7-foot giant, like you were talking about, right? Inside your mind, you feel like you are the man. And I lost in region my junior year. I'm like, what am I going to do? I get up and I ran that night when I lost until I threw up. Until I threw up a couple of times because I was never going to allow that dream to escape me. The following week, we had a week between region and state. That following week, when there were assemblies, when there were extracurricular activities that I could have done, you better believe I was found in that wrestling room. You better believe I was doing the extra work. Just so, after that first day of the state tournament, there's 3 days. After the first day of the state tournament, we had a pep rally. My old coach, Bart Thompson, the man, we went to the pep rally. He says, Ben, tell everyone that we just won the state title. I said, what? He's like, we won the state title after day 1. We don't have to show up anymore if we don't want to. Our team just won our first ever state championship. We were able to get up in front of the whole school and say, and they were waiting for a report to come up saying that after day 1, this is how we did. I said, well, I just want to tell everyone on our team congratulations because we're coming home with a 5A state championship, first ever trophy. And how was I able to do that? I was able to do it with the pillars of the people who I surrounded myself with. We're only a sum average of the people, right, that we surround ourselves with. And I was just able to surround myself with people like my parents, Bart Thompson, all my teammates who made it possible to dream big and to do stuff like that.
Yeah, love it. That visualization and seeing it happen before it happens, there's just such power in that, right? So after high school, you went to Oklahoma, wrestled for Oklahoma, and took 3rd in nationals. Is that correct?
So any Oklahoma fans out there, I'm going to say Boomer Sooners, right?
Uh-oh.
So it was fantastic. We went out there. I went out there. My brother came home from serving a church mission. We both took a little car and drove out there where we were both able to compete. It was a fantastic experience. Our team, when I was out there, took 3rd in the country, and it was phenomenal. I mean, you basketball fans out there, this is like, you know, the Final Four when you're in the top 3 in the country, and it was a phenomenal experience. And was able to go to nationals for freestyle and Greco. I placed 3rd in both of those, and then decided to serve a mission for my church for 2 years, learn Spanish. And then when I came back, I transferred I wanted to be closer to home. I transferred to Utah Valley University, which was just building a program at that time. I gave up a couple people, you know, very few people know this, but I gave up some years of eligibility to be able to do that. And my senior year, I was able to go to nationals. And one of the first times we've, you know, had people go to nationals because we're such a new program, and was able to overcome some odds. Went in unranked. I wasn't ranked in the tournament, and it was awesome in front of almost 20,000 people in Philadelphia, and was able to beat some undefeated guys and make it to the national semifinals on Sports Center and ESPN. And then I placed 4th in that tournament and became UVU's first ever wrestling All-American, and it was absolutely an honor.
That's awesome. And they have your ringlet or something hanging down there, right? On the wall down at UVU?
Yeah, it's a singlet. So
singlet. Okay. See, we don't have those in hockey.
That would be very cold if you had that in hockey. I'll tell you what, man.
That's
it's
awesome.
Basically like really big underwear that I had to wear in wrestling, but no, it was good. Yeah, they've retired it over there next to some NBA players and stuff like that at the UCCU building there at UVU. So it's been pretty cool.
All right. I want to get to your professional career here in just a minute, but give us just a quick what your experience was in the Olympic trials, because I know you just missed going to the Olympics by just a hair.
You know what? After I finished my career in 2011, the Olympics was 2012 in London, and I did a lot of soul searching, and I said, this is the time for me to compete. And any of you guys who are out there, this is a nugget for you. Any of you guys who are out there who want to do something, and like the book Good to Great talks about, if you don't want to just be good at it, but you want to be great at it, listen to this piece of advice that I received. Listen to this piece of advice that helped change my life in that moment. I went to an individual who's trained by Mark Schultz, right? And his name's Rich Eggett, by the way. He owns Rockwell watches. And I knew him. He said, Ben, take this piece of advice like I took from Mark Schultz. And Mark Schultz, if you know who he is, he's the old coach at BYU. He was a world and Olympic champion. They'd had a movie set up, been done about him. Channing Tatum was the person who acted him out in the movie Foxcatcher. And he said, Ben, if you're going to do this, because you don't just go to try to do the Olympics and become second, right? You got to be best in the world to do it in the sport of wrestling. You got to be, they only take one guy. And it's like, if you're going to do this is for you guys, anybody out there who wants to do something to be the best at, he says, you got to commit suicide. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? You're insane. I didn't understand it, right? Right here in between my ears wasn't on the same page that he was at. He said, you got to commit suicide. I said, what do you mean? He said, financially, socially, physically, mentally, emotionally, take it to the next level. So that was it. I quit my job. I started training full time, 4 days, 4 times a day, 3 times a day, depending on my schedule. And then my wife had to work. I fundraised $60,000 to help me travel around the world and train with the Russians. It was a phenomenal experience. I missed my goal. I lost to the guy in the Olympic trials who was my teammate at Oklahoma, by the way. And he went on to be the Olympian. He's the guy who I lost to. I was able to go out there and be a part of the games and watch the games, watch my buddy, represent the U.S. It was an absolutely phenomenal experience. But I learned this. I learned that I could do whatever I put my heart and mind towards. And if I chose to sacrifice, and if I chose to live on a higher level of commitment, then I could achieve what I wanted to achieve. So it was a great experience.
I love the fact that you use the word chose. Really, it's a choice, right?
Absolutely.
So in the last handful of years, you've had some really cool opportunities to speak to some big groups and get invited by some pretty prominent people to participate in some events. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's been fantastic. I mean, the more we're open out there about what we represent and who we are, and when we're open to talking about those things, we are able to impact people. So I told you in 2011, I started talking and opening up about Crouzon Syndrome, and people asked me to come and speak, and it was really difficult. It was really hard at the beginning. As I was able to do that, people were able to buy into the story and want to support you. Since then, between 2011, 2012, and to today, 2017, I've been able to speak in front of multi-billion-dollar companies. I've been able to speak just in the last 12 months in front of a crowd of 10,000 people next to some really prominent bands who spoke next to us. Lucas Graham, we're setting some stuff up now to do things with Imagine Dragons coming up here soon, the DARE program. I mean, there's been some fantastic opportunities as I have understood who I was, and I was okay with me, right? I mean, a lot of times we want to do the biggest things in the world, but I mean, we got to start with us first. I think we were talking the other day, Matt, about, wanting to heal the world, wanting to make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race, right?
Right.
Well, why does that sound familiar? Because Michael Jackson sang it. But he also sang the song first and in this order: Man in the Mirror. And so as we tell that person who's in the mirror, as I'm looking at this, looking at the screen, I can see myself. As I tell that individual, man, woman, in between, right? As we tell that person right there, you're enough. There is no fear of failure. You're brave enough. You're strong enough. You can do it. You can make this happen. As we impact that person, then that's when we really start changing the world, right?
What's driven you to have that passion to impact people's lives like that? Because I know, we've been friends on Facebook for a while. You're always willing to kind of get online and share some really inspirational comments and thoughts, and you're kind of like my little beginner Tony Robbins. like you've just got such great energy, and I know that you work with a lot of youth from a coaching perspective. And what is it that drives you to share those things and have a desire to make that impact?
Well, I believe that it's already a part of us. Honestly, I believe it's already a part of us. Now, granted, there's practice. There is no entitlement mentality here, believe me. I've had to work for a lot, everything that we have, you too, and that's why I respect you. Is at the same time, there's nothing that we're going to understand that's not already innate within us. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Superman, when he's already Superman. The difference is he gets to go in the booth and go like this for the rest of the world to realize he's Superman. So why do I do it? I fully believe, and some people may call me crazy, but I fully believe that we're already Superman. I fully believe that we have what is in us to be great. And so sometimes it's just a matter of us uncovering that, whether it's a little bit of rust, or whether it is just a jacket that we need to take off to realize that we are Superman.
So let's jump into your professional career a little bit. So a handful of years ago, you decided to move past your career in wrestling and focus on real estate. And for the last handful of years, you've been really focused on your investment and your home flipping business. Tell us a little bit about why you chose that, and then what that business looks like presently.
Yeah, so it was about 3.5 years ago that I had the opportunity to get let go of my job, where I worked with some great people, but it wasn't the right opportunity for me. I don't think I was like the best at it, honestly, and it's just a little bit different life. I was making not the type of finances I wanted to, and I probably just wasn't bringing that type of money into the company either. That's why they probably let me go.
Wasn't the right fit for you.
I think the person I was working for there told me I was a circle trying to fit into a triangle shape. So after I got let go, I had the opportunity to go to a real estate event, and I purchased some education, and I started implementing it. And that turned into doing a flip on seller's financing. It was kind of fun. I did a seller's financing flip for everything under the roof. Well, it just so happens that under the roof was a 73 Lotus and a 67 Camaro that was just awesome. So I was able to flip that house and make $41,000 in 6 months, and jumped into another house and made $32,000 in that one. And in 1 year, I was like, whoa, like this was more money than I had expected from doing that. Call it luck, call it skill, call it whatever it is. I had a passion to take something and take it to its full potential. And it's been fun. I mean, jump forward, 3.5 years later, from July 2014, when I got let go of my job, we've flipped over 55 homes, or 55 units, I should say, 55 doors, and we have over 50 rentals, in Utah and throughout the country, and it's created a lifestyle that's been really fun and really rewarding, and it's given me some time freedom that's been really, really good.
So if we've got about 27 people with us live right now, and if you have any questions for Ben as we go through this, please go ahead and post your questions, and we'll take some questions near the end of the call. So Ben, how many, you've acquired 50 rental properties or doors? That's super impressive in that short period of time. What do you have currently as far as properties that are being remodeled and flipped right now? What do you have in your pipeline that's actively being done?
Yeah, in my pipeline, I have doing flips right now. I think I have about 16. So I'm currently like flipping about 16 different units, just in and out of the state. And I mean, it can become a little overwhelming if you don't have the right teams in place and the right people that you can trust. But that's what we currently have. We kind of pride ourselves in the style that we do for our flips. I tell everybody that no matter what property I do, whether it's a home that appraises for over $500,000, or if it's a trailer, I would live in it, because I take that pride in what we do and the quality of work.
Nice. So what does your 2018 goals look like for a number of flips?
Will you say that one more time?
What's your 2018 goal for flips?
You know what? If I can do 25 in a year, that's good. Just because I usually don't buy properties that are just what we call splash and dash or perfume the pig, right? We get something that we can have some equity in. And so if we did 25 with the people that we have on board right now, with the margins that we need to have, I would be happy.
Yeah, that's a big number. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So what are some of the qualities that you're looking for in a specific home? So as you start to target a potential flip property, what are the things that you're looking for specifically? What are some of the parameters you're looking for to decide whether to move forward or not?
That's a great point. Everybody out there who's played the game Cash Flow, if you've played it, it's by Robert Kiyosaki. It's fantastic. You're able to kind of put those things into play. And you got to know your minimum number, right? You got to know your walkaway number. When I first started real estate, I didn't know my walkaway number. But the parameters I'm looking for is, if I buy a home, it needs to, for like $100,000, it needs to be able to sell for $250,000, because I know I'm going to be putting quite a bit of money into that, because those are the homes that usually come with the right equity that you need. So if people can bring me a $200,000 home and it can sell for $350,000, I know I'll be putting about $50,000 to $75,000 to maybe even $100,000 into a home to make it my type of level of finish, and that's it. But to run down to my numbers, I like to have a 3-bed, 1-bath minimum, obviously, instead of 2-bed, 1-bath. 1,500 square feet, $70 a square foot. Those are kind of what I'm looking for. And I mean, there's realtors that I've worked with just in the last month that I've been able to pay almost $50,000 to in commissions, just because they're finding us the right stuff, and we're able to close quick. I mean, on one of those, we closed in 48 hours with cash. Matt, you guys have a fantastic team. There's a lot of realtors that I've worked with in your team that KW that are just fantastic. I mean, Daniel Merrill, Randy Park, Jimmy Rex, Matt Christensen. I mean, the list goes on.
Thank you.
You guys have
thank you. I appreciate that. We work really hard to be in business with really good people, and the majority of the people that listen to this podcast are agents here in the state. So you might be getting a lot of calls with property ideas on things that you can buy next from them. So, but that's awesome. I mean, the fact that you work with these agents and see value in them, that's appreciated, and I respect that in a big way. And it's nice to hear you call out, recognize some of them. So do you think that's kind of the sweet spot? Is that $70 a foot? When you look at the market today, because one of the questions or things that I hear, and I'd love your input on this, is as you know, we've seen probably one of the best runs in real estate that we've seen in history, really. And in many cases, some people are fearful about us seeing some sort of a repeat from the correction that we saw in 2008, 2009. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of really strong data that would suggest that it's a very different market than what we saw at that point. But even given that, let's say we're not going to experience that kind of a correction, we're certainly in a really good economic 10-year run here, which is extended beyond what most real estate cycles really extend. And so there's a lot of people that I hear talking about, this is not the time to be in the fix and flip type business. It's very risky right now to do it. And there's just not good properties out there that you can get a decent margin on. But you seem to be, proving otherwise.
You know what, Matt? I actually love hearing that, because whoever says that is absolutely right. If they believe it's not the time to buy for them, you're right. Warren Buffett would tell you otherwise. Granted, not everybody has deep pockets like him. I completely understand, but we all have something that we can bring to the table. He just made a calculated risk and was able to exponentially grow his portfolio in the last downturn. So I'm not afraid for the downturns as long as we're calculated on our risks. I'm actually ready for that time, because if we have our money in place, it's going to be a good time. I think that's one of the best times to come into real estate, honestly, if you know what you're doing. So to bring some value to the listeners out there, everything that you do is a risk. It's just calculated. How do you calculate that risk to run your numbers, right? Because there's fear and fear of failure or whatever in that, and that's totally fine. I will never tell you to not run the numbers. I would actually tell you to run them and overestimate, because that's how you really do well in this type of stuff.
Be overly cautious, you mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be overly cautious in the areas you need to be overly cautious in, because there's areas that I overestimate in my cost, and then I underestimate in my my other numbers, like my prices. So for example, I just had a house that my numbers to buy it were $100,000 less than what we ended up selling it for. So we run our numbers really strategic. You got to get real good at saying no to the bad deals. And once you know what you're doing, you'll say no to even some of the good deals, and you'll just hit the deals that make sense for everybody. But I would be strategic, and I would run my numbers really hard. A lot of the things that we don't put into play is insurance, right? Carrying costs. If you're borrowing money, do you guys plan on paying utilities? Do you guys plan on, taxes? Sometimes we just put in materials and labor and that's it. Well, no, that's not the way it works. And then once you open a wall in rehab, man, you're going to fix 7 things instead of just one thing. So it's just running those numbers strategically and being able to say no to the deals that aren't going to make you the right money. And then if your number is $15,000 to walk away, I'd say it's too close. I'd put your minimums at closer to $20,000 or $30,000 net profit, because those margins can change real quick.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from one of my coaches was to create your filter. And he was giving me this advice both relative to my real estate investment and to my personal opportunities. He said, the more successful you are in life, the more opportunities will present themselves to you. And it's really important that you take time when you're not caught up in the emotions of negotiating on the deal or being flattered that someone's presenting a new business opportunity to you, that you're not trying to make the decision then, that you've pre-designed your parameters and filter against which you'll run the scenario prior to you being emotionally involved. And that's been such a powerful piece of advice as I think about what you're saying relative to being willing to say no, because so many times I see people do this, and I've seen myself emotionally get excited about a deal, and I'll allow for myself to pinch on my margins or start talking myself into the deal versus going back to the filter that I designed when I wasn't emotionally charged about the opportunity and saying, if it doesn't match, I'm going to say no. And I think that's just, stellar advice, Ben. Thanks. So at what point do you decide to keep a property versus selling it? So I know that over the years you've accumulated some really nice properties. Is there a certain, parameter or a certain kind of property that you're saying, hey, I'm going to keep these based on, these kinds of assumptions?
When you're talking about rentals, right?
Yeah. So some of these flips you're deciding to keep in some cases and keeping them as investment properties, right?
Yeah, I think us as investors or real estate want to be investors, right? I really think, Matt, what we are is we're property psychologists, right?
What do you mean by that?
Property shrinks, whatever you want to call it, is that we figure out where this best fits, right?
Yeah.
We analyze these properties and we decide, all right, this is where we're going to go with this. We're a doctor. We're a property doctor, in other words. So for me, on my properties, if it nets me, if one door nets me $1,000 a month, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull the trigger. Here in Utah, I think if you have what I call the 1% rule, then you're going to be okay. Meaning, if you buy a property for $400,000 and you can collect rents, gross rents, so if you buy a property for $400,000 and you collect monthly $4,000, you can be okay. Granted, it depends. Every property is different, but I'll start looking at a property if I can get the 1% rule on my rentals. Now, if I can hold it long term, then it's obviously bound to financing too, right? Is it a seller's financing? Like last 2 weeks ago, we just did a seller's financing deal. Today, we're just tying down another seller's financing deal. I was just talking right before I met with about another commercial building seller's financing deal. If you can seller's finance it with the right terms, that becomes really strategic for the portfolio that you can build for your rentals,
So it's really a cash flow decision. If you're getting the good cash flow and the financing structured in a way that you can hold long term, then you bank it basically.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. How are you typically financing and structuring your deals? Are they most commonly seller financing, or are you doing hard money deals? How are you structuring your deals most commonly?
That's a great question. I do some with my own funding. I do some with private money, and then I do some with hard money. Hard money is not really hard to come by. I mean, it's called hard money because it's based on the hard asset, right? But a lot of times, for an example, if you find a property, this is a property, you ask me what property I want, and this is a property I want. I want to find a property. I've done this a number of times. It's come out fantastic. I want to find a rental property that I could renovate like I'm flipping it, and I buy it hard money or private money. I buy it cash or with a lender or whatever, and then I renovate it up to a level, throw renters in there, and then come however long it takes me, 6 months to a year down the road, I refi out of it with a bank. That's something that's been very strategic for me and what we've done. because then you buy it quick. You're the first one to the table because you're buying cash or with a hard money lender or private money lender where you can buy quick. And then you renovate it, rent it out, and then you take that to the bank, and then they base the product on what it's bringing in and value and stuff like that, and then you could refi out of it and do long-term financing. That's worked out really well for us.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. And it seems right now compared to years past that private money or hard money is more affordable than it has been in the past. And I think likely in many cases, there's a lot of people with cash right now that are looking for alternative investment opportunities, and the options that they have available to them, whether it's bank or otherwise, aren't returning great returns. So they're willing to lend money at rates lower than what they have traditionally in the past, it seems. But it sounds like you're doing quite a bit of seller financing on your structured deals as well, right? And what does that look like? Maybe give us some examples of what that might look like.
You know what? That's a great question. Seller's financing comes down to the relationship of building a win-win situation, period. The reason why I think we do a lot of work is because we build a relationship of benefit on all sides. So for example, seller's financing, when you come to someone with seller financing, why in the world would they go with you when they can just get bought out cash by a bank or by hard money, right? Well, it's because you're creating a win-win for them. You're creating a win for the realtors because they're getting paid and they're gone because you come up, to the table with money down, and they don't need to wait around for your seller's financing. They need to be paid out for the work that they've done. Secondly, the seller can make more money on for an example, if I just paid you out cash, Matt, you're going to take your money to the bank and you're going to make probably 0.25% on your money. So instead of that, what I'll do is I'll allow you for carrying the note or carrying the quote unquote money, depending on who's listening, if they understand that verbiage, for carrying or seller's financing, you can give them you can pay them out, let's say 10 times or 20 times what the bank would pay them. So that's a win for them. And then if worst case scenario, you die, right? Then they can take back the asset that's been approved. And I know there's risk in it. I understand, but you're paying off the mortgage. And if there's still a mortgage in place, their credit can go up. And it just comes down to understanding who you're dealing with, being able to talk through the points that may scare them and get them to an understanding that makes sense. I mean, there's one guy I did the seller's financing on. Someone in your community actually brought me the property, and the guy had to go to Hawaii. He got let go of his job here. He went to Hawaii, and we were able to take care of the mortgage, and it's his credit's being raised, and there's all benefits to it if you do it the right way and you get it in writing.
Yeah, it's a matter of win-win and helping people understand and navigate, things that they may not understand on it. And sometimes I think as real estate professionals, we assume everybody understands what we do and how to navigate a lot of these things. And for most people, this is, a foreign language and something that they're nervous about and uncomfortable with. It's largely, in many cases, their largest transaction that they ever do in their life, buying or selling a home. And I think that's your attitude towards that is powerful, and it's probably one of the things that allows you to succeed in a big way. You mentioned earlier in the call that you first invested in an education program, and I know that that's an ongoing big piece of your personal development as you invest a lot in your own education and personal development growth pieces. But what were those first things that you invested in that helped you start learning the business? And then what are the tools and education communities that you participate in now that really support you in your business?
That's a great question. Like, this used to be all foreign knowledge to me as well. I mean, this was a complete Chinese when I first started. But so was wrestling technique when you start. But as you do it over and over and over again, and you surround yourself with people that can support you, it's going to be another level of success. I was able to invest in myself with the education platform, where we have communities all over the country. So when I go down to Texas this next couple of weeks, I have a community of investors down there that we do deals with, and we help each other. I have calls every week. I would love to, have these guys jump on calls if we can create value for them. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., we get on a call and talk about investments and how we can help out. There's investment packages that I invested into that has allowed me to understand what I understand now. My investment community and my investor community meets every week. We meet every Tuesday night and every Thursday night at 7 p.m. And we get together and we talk about how we can take each other to the next level and talk about, hey, how do we make this happen? How do we do deals? For an example, right now, I have guys who came in that were ex-lawyers or doctors or school teachers or in between that have always wanted to invest in real estate. But what stopped them? They haven't known how. They have fear. There's no money. And so we just take away those obstacles, and then we just start doing them together. I'm doing 6 flips with people in my community right now. And it's a win for me because I don't have the time to do all of them. It's a win for them because they didn't understand how to do it before. And then we understand through an education platform that we have how to do it, how to take it to the next level. And I think, Matt, when you ask that question, people don't do real estate and people don't understand how to create relationships with investors and realtors and people like that because there's a fear of failure. There's a lack of understanding of how to create or attract the money, and they don't know how or what to do, what the next steps are. And I tell you what, when you understand those relationships and what to do next, it can be really powerful. And I tell you what, kind of a plug-in for you guys, and Matt didn't tell me to do this, by the way, but as I've created relationships with people like you, Matt, and realtors, they do full-time what I'm always looking for, and that's finding properties. And I tell you what, there's people in your community that have created so much value for me. And as I get to reach out to these realtors, I tell you what, they have just brought me so much value, and they've helped make me a lot of monetary value, a lot of money. And I'm so grateful for them, and I'm grateful for my relationship as I've worked with them and to achieve abundant mentality together.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. Do you mind sharing specifically what the name is of the organization that you participate in that provides, those opportunities for you to network and the calls that you're doing?
Absolutely. It's called Renatus. It's Renatus, Renatus. You can go to myrenatus.com, myrenatus.com. If you guys are interested, we have a team nationwide. Anywhere you go, they have just communities. And the reason why people fail, I think in one of the reasons why people fail in real estate is they don't feel like they have the support. They don't feel like they have the knowledge, and then they have a fear of doing it alone. So what we're here for is to help you guys get in touch with people, like Matt, like with realtors, with other investors, with people who have the type of money, like hard money lenders, private money lenders. So whatever doubts everyone has, man, that knowledge can be answered, that can be given, and the support system can be there to start achieving what you want to achieve in real estate.
Yeah, the relationships are the key, right? Having the people that are your mentors or supporting you that can give you the confidence to make those decisions and take the steps that maybe, up to that point you haven't been, that you haven't had the confidence to take. What are the other education? You mentioned specifically that you bought a training manual when you first started. What was that specifically?
So I've been to, when gurus came into town, because I wanted to get to know real estate, right?
Yeah.
And I was jumping in. So anybody out there who's working a job they don't like or whatever, or just want to get into real estate, a lot of guys are already into real estate and they just want to jump to the next level. I invested in a guru that came into town that didn't work out very well for me because there are a lot of promises and that were given that weren't taken. And I won't mention his name, but then I was able to jump into Renatus. There was a benefit for me because every instruction that's given is done by someone who specifically knows that market. They've made millions of dollars in that market, and it's an online platform where you watch the videos. For an example, the guy who teaches about tax strategies and teaches about accounting as a CPA and a lawyer, and he's written a bunch of books. And so whatever you guys want to invest in for education, just make sure that it's something that is going to allow you to jump to the next level. That's what I would tell you. And then implement it. A lot of times you can look stuff up on Google, right? And if you watch it over and over and over again, but you never implement it, then it's not going to be good for you. I mean, I say that a lot of us want to buy a glass of water, but we never want to open it and drink it to allow it to quench our thirst. I think we have to buy the glass of water, and then we have to implement any knowledge that we have to really let it take an impact in what we're doing in our lives.
Yeah. I think really though, the key principle, right, is just investing in yourself, engaging. I remember very specifically, I bought Carlton Sheets like investor thing. I don't know if he's still out there, but I remember as a kid, he was always on every late night. And I just sit there and get so amped up as a 16, 17-year-old kid about investing in property. And I ultimately bought his package, and it led to a very profitable flip. And I think just, regardless, just committing to attending those webinars and events and things, you just learn and start to develop those relationships. There's a lot of value in all of those. So we're kind of wrapping up. We don't have too much time left, but I'd love for you to maybe share any scenarios where have you ever lost money on a deal? And what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing people make that are new to flipping, and what coaching would you provide to someone that was wanting to get into the business?
Matt, those are great questions. I've been really lucky. There's only one deal that I haven't made my money back on, and it's still pending. In the last 3.5 years, we've done worst case scenario, and I've surrounded myself with some really intelligent people who have been where I want to go, and where I am now, and they've been the reason why I haven't lost money in my scenarios. Not every deal you're going to make six figures on. Some you're going to make a lower amount, and some you're going to make higher amounts. It's going to be a home run. But there's one deal that I did, and I didn't get the proper contract in place, and it was like a handshake type of situation. And he changed his mind halfway through. He was halfway through my investment of $25,000 into his home. And I would just tell you this, in my opinion: have the hard conversations up front, right? So when I was telling you about seller's finance, you notice I said, well, worst case scenario, you die. That's worst case scenario, or something happens. What happens with the property? Have the hard conversations up front. Don't have it be emotional. Talk straight numbers. Put it in a contract. Understand that everyone's not perfect. There's going to be changes. There's going to be differences. Be willing to have an open communication and roll with market changes, and roll with things that may happen that way. But I think when you do that and you inflate certain numbers and you deflate certain numbers, depending on what you're deflating and inflating, you're going to be able to calculate your risk a lot more than just going on a whim, right? And calculate what you're doing. Be very strategic in who you surround yourself with, and I think you'll be a lot safer that way.
Do you have any software or apps specifically that you use for calculating and analyzing your deals?
Absolutely. There's something I call, which is in the Renatus platform. It's called Renatus iOS, and it has Deal Analyzer. and you literally implement all the numbers through, and it pops you out if you should do the deal or not, right? I mean,
Nice.
you decide at the end if you want to do the deal. But these are things that come at a small cost that over the end of time, it really pays off. And as you run your numbers, I think that's one of the biggest questions I'm asked. How do you run your numbers? How do you make sure you're not in a good deal? Just, run it over and over and over again. And, you're going to eventually make a mistake, but that's part of the game. But try to calculate those mistakes, minimize those mistakes by surrounding yourself with the right individuals, by understanding what you're doing, and by willing to be confident in yourself and make it happen.
Yeah. What you're saying reminds me a lot of one of my mentors telling me years ago that in order to hit the home runs, you've got to be in the game. And, a lot of times the singles, the doubles, the triples, they all look on paper just like the home runs. The home runs just happen to show up occasionally. But if you're not in the game, just going out and focusing on getting those singles and doubles, you're never going to get the home run, or it's really, really rare. It's kind of like winning the lotto, right? So it's just got to be in the game, doing the homework, focus on the analysis, hit the singles, and then all of a sudden, every now and again, you just get you get a little bit lucky. You get the right one, and you hit the home run. So there's a couple questions that people have posted real quick. Do you have a website or a page that people can go check out your properties that you're working on, or how can people follow you and keep up to kind of date on what you're doing?
You know what? We have a website under construction right now. They can hit me up on Facebook. I have 3 different pages right now, and a lot of them are limited at what they limit you at there. I have a individual page that they can go to that I'm trying to moving stuff over to, and it's just under Ben Kjar. That's BENKJAR, BENKJAR. But they can also email me. Feel free to email me at BENKJAR@yahoo.com. BENKJAR@yahoo.com. I would love, and what I haven't told you this, Matt, but today is Tuesday, and it's called Thanks Day, right? So you have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then you have
Thankful Tuesday or something, right?
Yeah, Thankful Tuesday. So you're the first one I've told this to. So the people listening right now are going to get first dibs. I have a handful of slots that I'm going to give away for free. And they're going to be 1-hour slots. And what I would like to do is I would like to know serious individuals that want to invest in real estate. And those individuals, I'm going to sit down with them, and then they're going to be like, Ben, this is why I'm not doing it. This is why I'm not buying properties. This is why I don't know any realtors. This is why I don't know how to get into the game. We're just going to minimize those fears. And if it's something that they want to start jumping into, we're going to talk about what that looks like. So I'm going to offer that to 5 individuals, and then we'll set up a time about what that looks like, but it'll be completely free. We'll set time up to when people are available, and we'll be about an hour. If they need an hour, I'll give them an hour of my time where we'll sit down. We'll be like, hey, listen, what is it that you have goals of doing? How do we accomplish our goals? And then how do we do it as quick as possible, right? How do you minimize the risk? How do you calculate that? And then how do you make this happen with making no more money than what you're making now and create opportunity?
Ben, that's so generous of you. Thank you. How do the listeners, we've got about 40 plus listeners on right now. How do they let you know that they're interested in that hour of free coaching?
Sure. So what you're going to do is you're just going to email me at BENKJAR@yahoo.com, BENKJAR, like Kjar, @yahoo.com. If not, you can go to my Facebook, and I just started Instagram too. So if you want to message me through there, that's fine. Email is probably the easiest way to do it. And then we'll just start knocking people, the meetings out and schedule whatever time's best for everybody. Excuse me. there's only a certain amount of spots, so I want to make sure that when you tell me, when you tell me what you want to do, I want to hear, or when you tell me if you want to do this, I want to hear why. I think if your why, and we talked about this the other day, Matt, when your why makes your hair stands up on the back of your neck, when your why gets you a little bit emotional, you realize it's strong enough. And I'll tell you my why, Matt. I do what I do because my why is freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of religion, freedom of belief, freedom of choice, freedom of speech. And that is something that I would die for. And I tell you what, if your why is something that you'll die for, then you will make it happen. You will make things happen in your life that you never thought would even be possible, and they'll come through work ethic and tenaciousness.
Love it, Ben. I don't know how we end on something better than that. So that's pretty powerful stuff. I really, really appreciate you being on today. As I've shared with you before, you're one of my big heroes, and you've solidified that today. There's been a lot of really good comments. I'm hoping that if you don't mind jumping on the Facebook page, there's a number of people that have asked some questions. And if you don't mind hopping in the comments at some point and responding, would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely, Matt. I'm here to create value. At the end of the day, I think that's what life is about. As we create value for others, I think it just comes right back to us, and I would love to do that. If there's any way I can create value for people out there, I would love to do that. Matt, you too, man. I mean, we got to get together soon, and what I got to do is I got to come to one of your boys' hockey games. I mean, he's trying to live up to his old dad, you know.
He's already passed me a long time. he's pretty talented kid. So, but yeah, I'll let you know when he's coming into town. He'll be playing in Ogden, I think, sometime in January. So would love to hang, and I'd love for you to meet him. I actually told him that I was interviewing you today, and he's like, "Who's that?" And I explained and reminded him. He's like, "Oh, that guy's a stud." I'm like, "Yeah, yes, he is." So,
is he semi-pro now?
Oh, he's playing in a development league. So
wow,
yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, he's having a great experience. So, all right, Ben, appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much. You guys, that has been another episode of our Real Insights Live. Thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm sure the post-production will be a lot cleaner than that when you have the opportunity to listen to it on our podcast. Here in a few weeks, we will be launching the full podcast of the Real Insights Live. And give everyone the opportunity to kind of download these to your favorite podcast app and listen to them on the go. Appreciate everyone's support. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/KW Utah, and my personal Facebook page, facebook.com/Matt Green Utah. And that's probably the best place to learn of upcoming episodes. Again, we have a really great episode coming up in a couple of weeks. With a couple of gentlemen from California who have a fantastic real estate podcast, Real Estate Uncensored. So we're looking forward to that on December 6th. And that's it. Peace, love, and productivity. Have a great day.